My name is Blake Goforth. I'm the Career Services Coordinator at Shawnee Community College. I am here today with Brock Buckner of Elevated Ag LLC. Brock, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, no problem.
Let's start off with just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the company, your position in the company, and then what you all do.
Okay, perfect. Hey everybody, my name is Brock and I own and operate Elevated Ag LLC here in Jonesboro, Illinois. And you have a sneak peek of kind of what I do right behind us here. These are all large agricultural spraying drones. So Elevated Ag is a company where we applicate crops, whether it's corn, soybeans, cotton, and we also are a DJI distributor of these agricultural drones. So now I'm actually helping people on a nationwide level get their own drones started for their own custom application business, or simply a farmer having their own drone where they don't have to pay those application fees to the applicator.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you're in a lot of different areas within the drone industry. You do a lot of different things. It's not just selling drones or spraying yourself.
Sure.
You have really expanded your business to touch almost every part of the drone business.
Yeah, that is true. That's a good point. You know, whenever I started creating Elevated Ag and looking at everything as a whole, it seemed like the industry needed guidance. You know, if I were to Google, how do I start a drone applicating company today? You would have a lot of legislation on Part 137 exemptions through the FAA, and you feel like you're getting ready to fly a helicopter by the time you get done with all of these different tests. So being in this industry now for 4 years, I know the FAA process, I know the Illinois state licensing process, I know how to fix a drone, I know what parts you may or may not need, I know how to map the fields properly, I know how to create a KML file if you're doing a job for the government. And so, you know, as a whole, when people come in, they want someone that is a one-stop shop. So we have kind of created that for the customer over the past couple of years.
Awesome. So you mentioned the FAA, and you know, we'll get into a little bit more of this in just a little bit, but you're telling me this, I can't just go buy a drone and then just start flying it.
Exactly. So traditionally you may have seen or may have even owned like the smaller hobby drones. And from a nerdy statistical standpoint, those drones are 249 grams or less in weight. You can use that without a license. When it comes to these larger drones that are 55 pounds and above, that's where all of these exemptions come into play through the FAA. And that is called Part 137. So we are petitioning to be exempt from a prior law that says it's illegal to spray with a drone by the air, because the FAA and government are so far behind on legislation. They created this exemption process to streamline. So we first start by taking your Part 107 test. Anyone 16 or older nationwide can study and take the test and pass it. Okay. That's kind of your driver's license to fly any drone commercially. Okay. Whether you're making money, you're filming for a wedding, you want to film some tractors in the field, whatever you may do, Part 107 is kind of your driver's license for the drone. And then as we get into large heavyweight drones, we are spraying economic poisons on their crops, whether it be insecticide, fungicide, a lot of foliar agents, which are like micronutrients for the crops. And so that's when we get into these heavyweight exemptions.
So Brock, take me back a little bit and tell me a background from your perspective in terms of maybe education.
Sure.
And how you got here to Elevated Ag dealing with the drones, because I know you've done some other things before you got to this.
Sure. Yeah, it seems like I'm a frog and life is a lily pad and I'm just jumping and jumping and jumping. But I find these things that I'm passionate about and I go kind of all in on it, and I'm successful and I mold it and I make it to where I'm happy with it. And then I add something else in the mix. So going all the way back, high school graduation, 2010. And I was involved with golf pretty heavily there, and I had good buddy Blake Goforth, and him and I played golf together, BFFs, and then went to Shawnee College for about a year and a half after that, trying to determine what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get married, have children, and trying to come up with a steady career. So I found a respiratory therapy program over in Cape. And so I finished up my requirements at SCC and joined the Cape Girardeau Career and Technology Center for the respiratory therapy program. So I thought, medical field, stable career, good pay, good benefits, hard work, but it'd be worth it because we're taking care of people. And I loved being a respiratory therapist. I did that for right at 10 years exactly. And in the meantime, I've always been entrepreneurial spirited. I would buy and sell old coins. I'd buy and sell old signs. We do have some older signs here in the shop too. It's another hobby of mine. And so just trying to figure out like what I could do to scratch that entrepreneurial itch. So I ended up starting a pest control company. This was right when COVID hit. And so everyone's at home, the spring bugs are coming out, and here I am launching a mosquito spraying business. So we went from 0 to 100 really quickly. I had 2 full-time guys going around Southern Illinois spraying for that. And that was a fun gig. And as we got bigger and bigger, I looked into these agricultural drones and I thought, well, maybe I could buy one of these drones and spray campgrounds and venues for weddings, the Shawnee National Forest, picnic areas. So I talked to a couple of people, ended up buying a T20 model from DJI. And I learned that you could spray crops with these drones too, just the same as another revenue stream. So kind of the same line of work as the bug spraying, but I would transition to crop fields instead of yards. And so from there, that just grew into a whole niche of itself. And then I thought, well, if everyone buys a drone, who's going to service these? The nearest place was 4 hours away where we purchased the drone through. And then I'm like, well, I have flight experience. Let me figure out how to repair these. Let me figure out how I can be a dealer so I can order parts. And as we build our fleet, maybe I would get a slight discount on those drones. And then I learned all the technical stuff in the background, and then I can help more people. So that really opened the door for Elevated Ag. So when a local company approached me to buy the pest control business, I thought maybe it'd be the right time to sell that. Then I could leave the medical field, pursue self-employment, and go all in on the agricultural side with drones. And so that's what I ended up doing.
I talk a lot about finding what you love to do and figuring out a way to get paid doing that and make money doing that. That seems to be what you've done. But again, like you said, you started out with one drone, right?
Yeah.
How many drones do you have now?
A bunch.
A lot more than one.
Yes, yeah, a bunch.
A lot more than one. And so how were you able, because again, and you talked about the multiple revenue streams that you have in terms of finding the things that you like to do, and with the antique signs, with the antique coins, with the drones, you have kind of turned that and made it a reality in terms of you get to deal with what you like to do already.
Sure.
And you're able to make money.
Sure.
And from making money, then you can start other ventures and do other things.
Sure.
As you've already mentioned, business is not just, especially in the drone business specifically, like you've mentioned, it's not just buy a drone, start flying, start spraying. There are steps that you have to take. You have to make sure that things are legal, that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Sure.
You know, probably having conversations with an attorney, probably having conversations with an accountant,
Sure.
incorporating,
Sure.
setting up a business model, business plan, things like that.
Sure. So how did that happen for me?
How did that happen for you?
Sure, that's a great question. Fortunately, we're blessed to have a good accountant here, Mark Chamness, and I use Whitney Accounting here in Anna. So I got with him and I said, I've got this pest control business and I'm going to be selling it. So what do I do with those funds? How bad am I going to be taxed on there? What about the liabilities? What about the assets? So I'm a big fan of like mastering a niche and be a part of that. So I lean on people if I'm not familiar in a certain category to trust them and to take care of me. Then as far as the legalities, fortunately there are websites like LegalZoom, Inkfile.com, State of Illinois, where you can set up your LLC. I've always been a fan of LLCs because of the liability asset protection. And then coming up with your EIN number for taxes, and then your articles of organization, who's going to be your registered agent accepting legal mail on your behalf. And so I trust those websites to make sure I need everything that's possible and I'm not leaving anything out. And then you have things that bounce back and forth right now, like the BOI forms called the benefit of ownership. And you have to state what percentage of the company you own, and the government said it's absolutely a requirement, and then a lawsuit axed that, then another judge overturned that. Now it's like, oh, well, it's recommended, it may be required in the future. Just go ahead and do it now. If it's flopping back and forth like that, and it's $50 or $100 for someone to do it for you, it's in my best interest to take care of that before I get really busy out in the fields and I get an email about this being a requirement again. So sometimes it's hard to dot all the I's and cross the T's, but if you have people in your corner, you can make that happen.
There's a difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur, self-employed. Most of us are trained to, go to school and then get a job, and that's kind of what we are educated about. That's kind of what we know. What skills do you think is very important for people that are wanting to and aspiring to be entrepreneurs and to start their own business? What are skills that they would need, and maybe what are some things that they could do before they start to kind of help them when they get to a business?
Sure, that's a great question. So if hindsight is always 2020, right? So if I could go back, I would take some business classes. I've never had any business classes in my entire life, not a single one, which is wild to think. Well, that guy has multiple businesses and he does this and he's never been trained. And so the high school has a program now called the CEO program. It's by Midland Institute, and they are prepping these high schoolers now, senior age, to become entrepreneurs, to be business oriented, but to also create a good educational foundation. So we're not trying to axe out college. We're trying to say, let's focus your niche on the classes that you need in college to learn all about the business world and then help you graduate to the next step of entrepreneurship. So I think what happened for me is when I was this respiratory therapist, I worked my way up the career ladder as far as that went in the hospital. I was the director of respiratory. I would run the sleep lab. I'd intubate people. I'd put them on life support and, do all that wild stuff. And then on my time off, work on the pest control business. So I really used my 9-to-5 job to buy an asset where I could also go out and spray crops. And then when I sold, that funded my dream job of Elevated Ag, to where Elevated Ag is paying myself and I'm the boss and I can do what I want as far as parts and sales and repair and selling drones. So my 9-to-5 funded my business. My business funded my dream of freedom with my wife and kids and hanging out with you.
Well, and that's another big thing in terms of why you wanted to start a business that you were working 9-to-5 at the hospital and you also had your other business on the side, but now it's allowed you to grow into a business that you don't have your 9-to-5.
Sure.
And you mentioned being able to be with your family and things like that. Is that what drove you to want to be an entrepreneur and to kind of be the master of your own domain?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. The answer is yes. I do everything for my wife and my little boys. And as sappy or as funny as that sounds, but if I went out today and sold all this crazy stuff, you see these monster businesses, and I got $1 million, like, what am I going to do with that? Do I travel the world with my family for a year? No. My boy's in school. My youngest is 3. I don't know what he would think of Italy or the Maldives, at 3 years old. And so do I put that all the way in college? And then I'm left with no income coming in. right? So I'm obviously not valuating my business at $1 million, but if someone went out and like won the lottery, a lot of lottery owners go broke and a lot of them become very depressed. You have to have a drive to get you out of bed every day, let the Lord guide you in what you're doing, and have a reason to show up. You know, so that's kind of my mantra. You keep on doing what you're doing, stay steady in the race, and keep all your bills paid. Help people out when you can, employ people when you can, help other businesses start, even if they are your competition, because it's going to find a way back to you to where you're going to benefit from it.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about some of the differences, because people might not know unless they have a background with people that are already in entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Of maybe some of the differences in being an employee versus being self-employed.
Sure.
There are benefits to both.
Sure.
There are some drawbacks to both, or some maybe more difficult things to both.
Sure.
So in terms of, being an employee, a lot of times you get benefits. A lot of times those include health insurance, days off, some other benefits that would, go with that.
Sure.
In terms of being self-employed, if you don't work and you don't make money and produce, you don't make money.
Yeah, that is true.
If you take days off, unless you have other employees working for you that are doing it while you're not there, you're not making money.
Sure.
You're responsible for the most part for health insurance and for, dental and vision and other things like that. For, if you own a building or rent a building, getting those different things. Are there things that people may not know about running a business that they would kind of take for granted being an employee?
Sure. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you are an employee, whether you're salaried or hourly, there are a lot of benefits. As a business owner, an employee basically costs double of what they get paid. You have things in the background like these Social Security and Medicare taxes that we're paying for the government. If we pay any extra into your retirement, workers' comp insurance. And does that employee need a vehicle? Do they need a gas card? So a lot of employees, let's say they bring home 40 grand, they're probably going to cost the business 80 grand. Just to have a helper around. And so is that employee worth that money that you invest into them? When you are an employee, you don't have the extra stresses and pressure of, am I gonna pay myself this week? Do I have that extra 3 grand to fix my transmission in my truck? Do I have $100 for an oil change and then another $100 to fill up the truck? Do I have 30 grand sitting around to buy another drone package for this upcoming spray season? So a lot of that goes hand in hand. If you are looking at starting a business venture and you say, I'm going to pay myself, I'm not going to have employees, I want to fund myself, I would have maybe a year's salary set back to where you can feed yourself out of that specific savings account while you test the waters to see if that business venture will work.
Yeah, because when you're a business owner, the business is your baby. So a lot of times you're going to be working extra overtime, nights, weekends, potentially.
Yeah.
It's not something where, and not all jobs are like this, but more so probably than someone that owns their own business. Some jobs, you clock in, clock out, you don't have to worry about it. Other jobs are more, employee based, but they're more lifestyle jobs where there might be things come up after hours or on the weekends or whatever. But it's still, I think, a little different than the whole thing landing on your shoulders as a business owner. If you don't take care of it, or if you don't succeed, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work and be successful.
100%. If you want to work 3 times harder as a business owner and get paid the same as an employee, then business is for you. And if you can't take a phone call during supper, if you can't work a Saturday or a Sunday, business ownership is not for you. I do my best to have family time, be with the wife and kids, have fun play dates, and there's a season for everything. There's a slower winter season pretty much all across the board. here in the U.S., here locally, Southern Illinois, and then there's a busier season, spring, summer, and fall. And when those farmers are out planting 12, 15, 18 hours a day, when they're harvesting every good day they can, and then they're calling me at 6 o'clock, they've been working all day, and I can't be like, oh, no, I'm eating supper. I can't get a hold of them because they're back in the tractor tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so what do they need me for? To spray their crops, to fix their drone, to sell them a drone, to ask about licensing questions. So there's a lot of balancing when it comes to time and money. And if you're not able to do that, have a professional do that for you.
And a lot of times, like you mentioned, farmers, you're working with other people who a lot of times are either contractors or they're self-employed as well.
Yeah.
And so they understand that as well. Now, not to discourage people from becoming entrepreneurs, there are other benefits as well, like, being able to be flexible. Again, flexibility works both ways. Sometimes you have to be flexible in taking those calls and working extra. Now, again, that's directly working for yourself. You're benefiting yourself directly when that happens, instead of maybe a company or your employer. But also, having the ability, depending on your schedule, to I'm gonna go run to my kid's soccer game, or I'm gonna go to this family event, or if unfortunately a funeral comes up or something like that. Or maybe if you have other responsibilities, depending on the job, sometimes again there's more flexibility, but you can kind of build in a little bit more flexibility, but with the understanding that, again, if you don't work, if you're not disciplined, if you are going to be kind of lax and you're not going to be a go-getter, that might not work out as well for you.
Yeah, that is true. Everything has pros and cons. If I was passionate about the vehicle industry and I had a lot of 100 cars, selling those cars would allow me to make a profit and a commission off those, and then I can pay myself that week or that month. But what if people don't have time to look at your cars until it's Saturday or Sunday? And you're like, well, that was supposed to be my time to be at home because I've been here Monday through Friday. Well, then maybe you have an employee that does work that lot Saturday and Sunday. And you sell the car, they're out of sight, out of mind, but one day they need to come back and check out your mechanic shop, get their oil changed, get a recall taken care of. And so that's when you need other support staff to fund the big business. So it could be hard at the beginning. It could be more time consuming, but as you go further into your particular business or industry, you can learn tips and tricks about hiring an employee for this or that, having a contractor for this versus investing into an employee. Or if you're paying someone cash for a couple of days work, how much cash can I pay them before they need to put that on a 1099 form? And so there's a whole wheelhouse when it comes to business. So that's why I think having a solid foundation and business courses probably would have saved me a lot of time and headache trying to figure that stuff out.
Could have definitely been beneficial.
Sure.
And again, to kind of wrap things up, the goal is to try to find something that you're really passionate about, that you really like to do, that you would do whether you're getting paid for doing that or not, and then finding a way to get paid. And I like your story a lot because you've done just that. We could be sitting, at breakfast, and you would love to talk about drones. You would love to talk about, antipottery. You would love to talk about vintage signs and collectibles and, coins and things like that.
Sure.
And you figured out ways to immerse yourself into those industries. Even though, antique sign is not your main job, or antipottery collections are not your main job, but you still do make money from those, correct?
Yeah, that is true. And I love collecting them also myself. So if I buy something, let's say it's $1,000 sign, I probably wouldn't buy it for $1,000 if it was worth $700. So if I can make $100 or $200 on it, yeah, I'll buy it, hang it on the wall, keep it for a while, or immediately flip it. If I have an unexpected high bill come up, then I can use some of those, I guess, quote unquote assets to turn and burn, get rid of it, free up the cash flow without interrupting the other operations.
Absolutely. So last thing, looking at retirement as an entrepreneur,
We get to retire?
Well, maybe. I think if you want, potentially, if you do the right things, and that's
Sure.
something that, again, it would be different than an employee, because a lot of employees, their institution or their company will have something set up for them, a 401k,
Sure.
maybe contribute to a Roth IRA,
Sure.
something of that nature. And they'll kind of be pushed in that direction. When you're an entrepreneur, there's
How does that
not really something, there's no one pushing you to that. So unless you're really thinking about that, thinking about the future,
Right.
doing things on your own,
Sure.
you might not be able to retire, like we said.
Sure.
What kind of things do you look at, or what could people, if they're interested
What
in
can
this,
you put in place?
what would they need to put in place to potentially retire if they want to?
Sure. So, being blessed as a self-employed entrepreneur, I'm able to meet other entrepreneurs and I can ask those type of questions too. I know a local guy that over time has bought up a lot of commercial properties and he's just sat on them. He may have ran businesses that may be empty. He may be flipped them. Then over time, that market of inflation has always crept up. Sell those, make a profit, move on. So if you get in a bind and you're like, I need 75 grand and that's going to be my salary this year. And I've got this property I've been sitting on, but this business venture that I tried, I lost money out on, or I just don't have the funds right now. I don't want to take a loan because interest rate is 10%. I can sell that, get rid of it, and then protect myself. Or I retire, I have 10 properties, sell them all, and then officially retire. This is not financial advice. Please speak to a professional about this. When I think about 401k, I think about working at the hospital. They would always want us to contribute to a 401k. And that taxes you when you go to pull it out. And so I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. A Roth IRA gets taxed up front and that will grow tax free. And that's going to be the way better choice if I could do a Roth IRA. The hospital came up with a special program. I think it was called a 401 Roth. And it was kind of like a combination of both of those. And the 401 part came in where the hospital matched, but then it get taxed up front and then it would grow tax free under the vehicular section of the IRA. Me personally, I've used a SEP IRA, the SEP IRA, and the Roth together. And hopefully one of these days there can be some more revenue coming in to where I could just take it on under my salary and then go to stock market, something like that, just to have multiple baskets out there with the eggs. But I am a tax-paying citizen, so hopefully there'll be some Social Security money down the road also. As I get 62, 65, 68, that number changes all the time. But having a lot of little vehicles with small baskets of money running off is how I personally do it.
Okay. Anything else you feel like you want to share or leave anybody with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Chase your dream. Put your passions first. I put my family first, and I don't say that in like an egotistical way, but I'm home pretty much every single night for supper. I'm not working till 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. Does that include a phone call in the evening sometimes? Yes, but I run outside or run into a room and shut the door real quick if my boys are playing and being ornery. Chase your dreams, chase your goals. It's obviously possible. I'm not a wild, rare success story. I found a niche, I mastered it, and I was able to build out from that. And I think you could do the same thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us and letting us know about entrepreneurship. If you have questions about becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business, Brock is a great resource. I know he would be willing to help people answer questions, maybe come in and look at his business and give pointers. If you have questions, you can also reach out to me. Again, Blake Goforth, Career Services Coordinator at Shawnee Community College. Come see me and let us help you. Thanks.